have so many memories about this crazy kid, Joe. But I just want to say thank you guys so much for being here. I'm so thankful that you guys are here and supporting us, but I know I can speak for myself and my family. We've had a really rough week with the body cam being released. But that we refuse as a family to remember Joe that way, because that is not who Joe was, and we will not remember him by his death. I refuse to let that happen.
Yeah.
We are going to remember him by some sweet, fun, laughable stories about what I and a lot of people in this room miss about Joe. So let's just talk about, Joe had like 9 personalities. But he had 9 personalities, but at the same time, those 9 personalities was like, he was the same as a police officer or a musician or a husband. Oops. Just kidding. No, really though. Or as a husband, and ultimately, like, he still was the same person at work, at home, playing drums, whatever he was doing. But he really did have a lot of personalities. But every single one of them had a sweet treasure to him. And so I miss his really good but bad dad jokes. He liked to make the dad jokes, but he would never become a dad. So I'm like, what the heck? You can't make these jokes if you're not going to become a dad. But that's okay. And I also miss his amazing impressions of Forrest Gump. He did by far the best impersonations of Forrest Gump I've ever heard. Joe was also known as Safety Joe. He liked the ugliest color, orange. And I love hearing his Safety Joe stories from his friends, and he worked at the gun range, and so we heard lots of stories about how he would run out on the gun range and just tackle a guy because they weren't doing what they were supposed to do. And he took carrying a gun as a privilege, as you should. And so if you weren't doing what Joe wanted you to do on the range, you were out of there. And so he would pick you up and take you out. So it doesn't surprise me he became an officer, because he was very good at that. But I can go on for, also let's insert him trying to teach me how to drive. God bless, how did we make it through that? I don't know. Only the Lord knows. But I am so grateful to know that this is probably the safest person I know taught me how to drive, so this is pretty amazing. Again, it's a miracle that I'm even driving, so I can go on for hours about that. But also I could go on for hours about Safety Joe's stories. And I do miss my Safety Joe. I also love his love for his community. The second he stepped in and put that uniform on, he wore it like it was supposed to be worn, and he loved his community like no other. And for that, and he ultimately made the ultimate sacrifice for his community, and for that we're grateful. So, Joe's love for the community. One of my favorite Officer Burson stories is he was going for FTO, and he was still in FTO, and he went to the gun range to patrol, and he saw a young kid sitting there, and he's like, it's midnight, no kid should be sitting at a gun range. And so he was like, hey bud, what's going on? And his FTO was sitting in the car just like, you got it, boy, you take care of it. And so he took care of it, and he was like, hey bud, what's going on? And the young boy was like, I just dropped something, and I thought I should pull over before I cause an accident. And so I just dropped something, and I've just been really sad. Me and my girlfriend just broke up, and I'm just having a really hard day. And he looks at Joe, and Joe looks at him. He goes, what's up, bud? What's going on? You need something? He goes, I really could take a hug. And so Joe was like, well, come on, I'll give you a hug. And so the young boy gets out of the car. The FTO was on edge after this, but that's okay. And so the young boy gets out of the car, and Joe gave this young kid a hug. And Joe came home the next morning, and he was just so excited to tell me, and he goes, babe, that's why I do what I do. And he said, because I saved that kid from I don't even know what. And so that just, my little wife heart pitter-pattered. So Anyways, that was one of my all-time favorite stories. Now, there's a lot of funny Officer Burson stories, and the officers in the back can agree with me. But like taking out a roundabout when he wasn't supposed to, or screaming into the wrong microphone, or bringing his new toys that were not wife approved to work, and showing his gun-loving coworkers all that he loved about his guns. And also, we love and miss DJ Joe on the radio. And there's some officers in the back who can do some incredible impersonations of that. And so we miss the sweet Officer Burson he was. And I'm so grateful that we got to know him in that way. Another side of Joe that I love and miss is the love for music and musician he was. Whether it be fun garage band practices with some friends up front and going to Applebee's at 10 o'clock for half-price apps, or going to see him play at bars and cool venues, even if it included 3 bar fights within 15 minutes with Rusted Soul, or watching him rock for Jesus every Sunday morning. Also miss him jamming out to me to the same 5 songs, just because he knew I loved it. A great personality that I really miss, probably the most, would be he would do whatever Marykate wanted him to do. And that's a true husband right there. So I'm so grateful for that. And that could mean from taking pictures of every single occasion. Okay, maybe not just one picture, but like 500 pictures. But that's okay. He would do it because he knew I loved that. And or jamming out with me to the same 5 songs over and over and over and over again, just because that's what I wanted to do. Or going to a Carrie Underwood concert with me and me busting his eardrums out because I'm singing in his ear. And he did it all with the great pure joy of who he was. And so for that, I couldn't be more grateful. I also miss the adventurous personality of Joe. All of our cabin, hiking, and beach adventures, with him blinding people at the beach because of how white he was. One of my favorite and last memories I have of Joe was when he convinced me to get on a jet ski, which was a miracle in of itself. And he looked at me and he was like, "We're getting on this jet ski." And I'm like, "No, I'm not." He's like, "Yes, you are. Suck it up, buttercup. I've already paid for it, so you gotta get on it." I'm like, "Well, darn it. Okay." So I get on it, and his blue line flat that he wore with great pride fell off of his head, and he looks at me and he goes, "Can you get that for me?" I said, "No, babe, that's a goner." And he said, "No, it's not. Just I'll turn around and you can just grab it down and get it for me." And I said, "Well, I guess you would do the same for me, so I'll do it." And so he was like, "Thank you so much." So I got down and I grabbed it, and he was like, "Oh my gosh, babe, you saved my blue line hat." I'm like, "Yeah, I would have bought you a $30 other one." And he was like, "No, I wanted this one." And so he said to me, "You're not only the best police wife, but you're the great hat hero I've ever had." So I'm so grateful for that memory. And so I really, really miss Joe's love and living for something above himself. And everyone in this room probably can tell one story, whether they knew him or whether they didn't. Even from the stories that I just told of how he truly was not afraid to live for somebody else. And he was not afraid to show his faith and share his faith with anyone when it gave him the right opportunity. Joe has showed us all what it means to live for a greater cause above himself. So with that, let's remember these stories and many, many more that we may know, and not his death. Joe, we love and we miss you. Save me a seat, baby.